Welcome to Joe's Astrology. Today is April 21st, 2024, Sunday, early Sunday morning. And the sun has just entered Taurus, and I'm going to look at that in relation to what else is going on with the planets. And I'm going to talk about Venus in an oblique, what's known as an oblique retrograde, and what could have occurred already for some people, and it's leaving that retrograde, so it's probably pretty much over. But just something I noticed there with Venus. Venus is at 19 degrees Aries, Mercury's at 16 degrees retrograde. So this would have occurred maybe 3 to 5 days ago, and Venus rules the Sun in Taurus, and of course I can go through the things that are associated with Sun in Taurus. I'll link my one of my other videos in the description that's specific to Sun in Taurus. This is how we do real astrology. You always have to look at what else is going on and see the chart as a whole. And I found it interesting that as the sun is entering Taurus, Venus was conjunct Mercury, which was retrograde. And it reminds me of back in August when Venus was actually retrograde, and I think the Barbie movie came out, and people were seeing a lot of breakups, celebrity breakups, and Venus being retrograde essentially signifies this idea of redo, renew, and review in life when it comes to the Venus archetype. And when it comes to love matters, many people were going through, if they haven't had those things resolved in their life, they would have been going through something during that time. Or if there's something that they needed to learn or they needed to go through, they would have been going through that during that Venus retrograde period. Depending on how important it is for the person to understand that, it could have been very severe, it could have been very mild. And I see that we just saw that with the Venus in an oblique retrograde, where some of these themes could have been being reviewed again, especially for people who haven't dealt with that. So I'm reading here from a book, the greatest astrology book ever, by Jeffrey Wolf Green, which I'll link that down in the description. I have a video on that as well. But he says here, if I have Venus retrograde, I must define for myself the meaning and values that I have for any relationship. In fact, those who have Venus retrograde typically cannot relate to the traditional mainstream types of relationships and tend to withdraw within themselves. Taurus co-rulership of Venus, in order to accomplish the individuation process that must occur. So he's talking about Venus retrograde and how it can correlate with unusual relationships or relationships that are not typical of the majority. But he's also saying, and this is, I think, a key point for the Sun in Taurus, where people are going into themselves. We think of this with Taurus, and really reassessing their values. And that's another point with this Venus retrograde that would have been important with this oblique retrograde, is that it's causing us to, or influencing us to, review our values if we haven't really figured them out, if we're unsure, like what essentially are we doing here? Why are we doing what we're doing? Are our actions in line with what we truly believe or what we truly want for our life? says here, the point within this is that certain key situations must be relived or re-experienced before they can be resolved. Most commonly, the individuation process indicated by the retrograde planet has not been fully accomplished, and that is why the soul will set up a life circumstance of reliving certain experiences. An oblique retrograde is an indirect retrograde, that the retrograde planet itself is impacting on the non-retrograde planet, causing the non-retrograde planet to obliquely act retrograde, but only with respect to the actual planet that is retrograde. So here we have the planet that's retrograde is Mercury. So Venus is indirectly retrograde in relation to the planet Mercury. And it's in the Leo decan. So these themes could have to do with Leo. They could have to do with Mercury. And I talked about values. So really looking at the mind and the thinking, even like the idea that your thoughts manifest reality. Some people understand this, and many people don't, and they may be. Let's say many people don't, and they may be just initially having circumstances that are initiating this process of understanding that their thoughts have power, and it comes back to this idea of renewing or reviewing your values. So you could say younger people may be going through the process of they haven't really thought about their values very much, and they may be having experiences, and specifically at this time with relationships, and they're saying, "Oh, this is what I value, and I really haven't thought that through, and no wonder that experience happened." And now I'm formulating that for myself so that I have more of that experience, or I will avoid that experience in the future based on the way I'm thinking and the putting together my thought process. And that would be how an oblique retrograde with Mercury might come into play. It could also have to do with money and values around money. And we also have, which is interesting here, we also have the moon entering Libra. So this all could have to do with relationships as well. I mean, when you really get down to the whole chart and you look at the whole thing, it's very complex. It's so complex that to sit here and look at a chart and come up with all the scenarios is absolutely mind-boggling. And I don't have the mind for it. I mean, to say that in all humility, I think I'm pretty good, but I don't even know that I want to do it sometimes because it's very hard. I find it very hard in the mind, and it's much easier to see someone bring their experience to you and then look at the chart and see everything that, for example, that I'm talking about come to life in the chart rather than try to come up with the scenarios on your own. And we still have Jupiter, Uranus in a conjunction. It just made the exact conjunction, which I'll link that down. I have another video down in the description. And all these things can really, as I was saying, can come into play here around that oblique Venus retrograde for some people. And this will continue as the sun moves through Taurus. And stay tuned because I will continue to talk about the sun in Taurus and get more specific about things that can happen during the sun in Taurus and what the sun in Taurus is all about. But essentially, this concept of values. Many people think of Taurus as food and money, but this concept of values is very important, and it goes to a deeper level as to how Taurus affects us. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope this video brought you some value and you enjoyed this video. And please subscribe to my channel for more great astrology videos, and have a great day.